Stand with me for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item tonight will be to approve the agenda pending any changes.
There are no changes to the agenda.
Someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as it's.
Mrs. Bezowski?
I'll second it.
Mr. Wolk, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, first item tonight then will be good news, recognitions, and announcements.
We do have our good news, recognitions, and announcements. A lot of very good highlights this month that our students have put together that you all are going to hear about once Mr. Earnhardt gets the lights, and we'll said one of these weeks we need to have Miss Stanley give us some popcorn and in great shape.
Right.
Mr. Pope wants the lights. They are.
Oh gosh.
Hi, I'm Abby Kent.
Hi, I'm Jake Stewart, and we're here to present this month's Good News, Recognitions, and Announcements. Abby recently was named to the All-State Band. She received a chair in the contract, alto, clarinet section. Connie Zusiak was also named to the All-State Choir. They will represent Festus at the annual Missouri Music Educators Association Conference at the end of January.
Jake was recently named to the Academic All-State Soccer team. This is a very prestigious honor. ACT, a 3.98 GPA, and an academic score of 120 or higher when the ACT and the GPA are multiplied. He must also be involved in at least 2 extracurricular activities, and he had to make a significant contribution on the field.
In football, academic all-state players are Cole Rickerman, Isaac Stuka, Landon Yates, Dalton Yates, Henry Rue, and Emily Holt. Not pictured are Peyton Beesor and Tyler Shepard.
And Eric Roos has been named a 3rd-team All-State tight end.
85th and 6th grade students took part in the annual Festus Fitness 3K. Festus Fitness helps promote a healthy lifestyle for students. Every Monday during the first semester, students in 5th and 6th grade join parents and staff volunteers to run or walk 1.4 to 4 miles after school. It culminates with the 3K around campus. Every athlete has a goal: win the race, post a personal best time, or complete the 3-kilometer course. Everyone who finished the course received a medal.
Students across the district work to help make the holiday seasons a brighter one for others. Elementary school students donated thousands of food items to the Brennan's Friday Backpack Program. At the intermediate school, students there donated food to the Ozark Food Pantry as part of the school's Share the Harvest food drive. 35 high school students volunteered at 2 food pantries to help sort and stack more than 10,000 food items. Many of that was donated during the Scouting for Food drive last month. Some of it was food donated by the intermediate school students.
Every student in the elementary school has had the opportunity to shop at the Santa Shop. The shop has low-priced items students can purchase for gifts for family and friends. Miss Moore, Rando, and Fletcher run the shop for a couple of weeks in December. Santa Claus even stopped by to visit the students.
Middle school and high school theater students presented 3 gingerbread plays for the first graders. The students traveled to the middle school for the performances of the Gingerbread Girl, Gingerbread Pirate, and Gingerbread Cowgirl. This is an annual tradition.
The 2nd grade held its annual Macy's Thanksgiving Parade through the halls of the elementary school on November 23rd. Students select a character from a book and create a cutout of that character. They parade through halls carrying their character, much like the large balloons that are part of the real Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York.
The Festus boys varsity basketball team rebounded nicely to take 3rd place in the Gene Stycourse basketball tournament at Hillsborough. The Tigers lost the semifinal game by 1 point to Park Hills, but came back the next night to knock off Sacrament in the 3rd place game.
Students in every building have been holding holiday concerts all month long. This is the middle school concert held back on December 7th. The month of concerts concludes with the 3rd grade concerts being held tonight.
Members of the FHS Key Club braved the cold temperatures on Saturday morning to volunteer and promote their canned food and toys drive at Walmart. Students collected monetary donations and purchased items that are in need for local children for the holidays. Many generous patrons purchased items from a list handed out at the door. The club collected more than 6 shopping carts of food, personal care items, and toys. Thanks to all who donated to this important cause. Items will be donated to the local food pantry and Jeffco's Toys and more.
Hi, my name is Anna Baldonado, and I'm Festus High School's December Student of the Month. My parents are Eric and Darcy Baldonado. When Dr. Schiniger told me I was the Student of the Month, I wasn't really expecting it, but I'm very excited to be able to represent Festus. My favorite class is AP Calculus. We do a lot of hard work in there, but some of my best friends are in there, so we get to do lots of fun stuff, and Miss Harms is my advisor, so I've gotten to know her very well. I am in student council. I am the executive treasurer for the past 2 years. I am in National Honor Society, and I'm in Key Club. I plan on majoring in biomedical engineering at the University of Arkansas or the University of South Florida.
Congratulations to Courtney Fadler. She's receiving a Navy ROTC scholarship worth up to $200,000. She intends to use it to attend Mizzou next fall.
Winter break begins with an early out on Wednesday, December 22nd. This is not a late start Wednesday. Classes will resume on Tuesday, January 4th, 2022. That's a look at this month's good news, recognitions, and announcements.
Okay, thanks for that. Any other questions? Comments?
It's awesome. Like I said, we had some local people recognized in there. Very good.
Okay, the next item tonight will be to approve the consent agenda, so I entertain a motion for that. Do we have any discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Wilk,
I'll second that.
Mr. Abrams, Dr. Luttrell.
Just a couple quick things there. The third reading for those board policies. We do have a new policy this month, policy AC, that has not been on the others. We should have approved that one a while back. It has to do with sexual harassment, Title IX, and for whatever reason, in the last batch, it just did not get in there. At the time, it was saying that we needed to kind of make sure we ran it through our legal team. Our legal team finally did say that, yeah, it's something we needed. So we're adding that in now, but instead of just pushing it through, I am gonna still keep it on the 3-month period. So that'll be the first reading for policy ACA, because it is pretty lengthy if you read through it. But again, it's not anything that we're not already on top of. Also, if you had a couple months ago, we had ARC Images here to show you their design concept for the Wellness Center. Those planning meetings continue. We actually had one earlier late last week, a week ago on the 9th. And this particular, what I've uploaded there is for you, in addition to a general contractor's bid that we'll get eventually, hopefully sometime in May, June, or July. We, of course, do have to have services and an agreement with the architect and engineers to provide all the design services. And so that is just a contract that ARC Images and I have kind of mulled through several times, went through several different drafts, and it shows in there what basically they do it on a cost basis in terms of this is what the service will cost to provide X, Y, and Z, and all those are outlined based upon what we feel our general contractor cost will hopefully come in at. So that's in there for you, was in there for you to review. And then also, we have, if you remember, a couple years ago, well, it's actually been 4 or 5 years ago now, we actually went with a provider to provide a lot of our athletic apparel. Remember a few years back, we went, the provider that we had was Winning Streak, and they provide a lot of Adidas type wear, spirit wear, team wear, uniform wear. Got a lot of discounts, and since that time, it's been a very good program, opportunity for Festus R6. But like everything, Winning Streak has been sold. That company has been sold now to another company, which was a smaller player about 10 years ago now. One of the larger ones, BSN. And so BSN is just getting all their ducks in a row, moving forward so that all their clients can kind of come on board with the same agreements, same discounts, a lot of the similar pricing. The only biggest difference, some of you may or may not be glad to hear, but the biggest difference in this agreement than the one we have with Winning Streak, even though it's kind of the same company because Winning Streak's no longer around. The biggest difference you'll see will be that BSN, their apparel of choice is Nike rather than Adidas. So that you'll start, whenever we purchase uniforms or you see different, they'll have the Nike logo as opposed to the Adidas. So that was on there, and that is a 3-year contract, and that's specifically because they do make a heavy investment up front, and then also, for the most part, then it does have at the tail end, if both sides are happy, we can renew that automatically a year at a time up to 5, and initially it's a 3-year agreement. There's no upfront money, it's only basically just allowing us to do business with them, and then, like I said, doing so, we will be entitled to certain rebates and pricing for a lot of the items that we use, and they buy in such large demand, it's easier for us to get things through them than if we go out on our own and try to get it otherwise. And then you also see, you may have asked yourself when you were going about what is this contract to provide for our, make sure that our website is user-friendly. Well, again, the current government statutes and that, say that school districts or any public type website needs to ensure that their website is in compliance for the most part to help individuals on the other end that might have sensory problems or sight problems or hearing problems, that they can still navigate your website just as easily as someone that may not have any hardships. And believe it or not, there are programs and services out there that help a public entity will automatically search their website and find out all your PDF different things that you might want to redo because they're not exactly as user-friendly to a person that could have a hardship. So what we've got there is we've got Mr. Pope and Dr. Roos have gone through and had different entities provide some demonstrations to our district about what their platform could do, and the one that they've come up with their, it's actually, what's the name of that? It's kind of got a weird name.
Moncito.
And so, but this is a 1-year deal. It would be 1 year to kind of see if this works and what benefit of it. I know that Dr. Roos and Mr. Pope were very enamored with it in terms of, because of things that the routine, the first scan that they did of our site came back and it would show some things. They weren't terrible, but still some things that maybe we hadn't thought of that could make our website much more enhanced by the outsider. So that's what that is. Other than that, those are the main things in the consent agenda. Like I said, our finances are still good. Next month, January, you can expect during this portion, Mr. Earnhardt to have a very detailed report on financials, because we will have our first half of the year complete. A lot of our local monies will be rolling in by that time. So other than that, that's all we have on the consent agenda.
Okay, do you want to pull that one, or do you want to just abstain? Okay.
Any other discussion, questions?
Yeah, I have a question about the VSN agreement. So if I were to want to purchase something from the district, it's gonna have to be Nike now, is that what you're saying?
They have some other brands too.
Okay.
I mean, that wouldn't necessarily be a Nike brand, but their premier brand, when you talk about like Nike, Reebok, Adidas,
That's what they're gonna be pushing.
the best discounts in that will come from Nike. Now, you can still get some of the other stuff, it just won't be as big of a discount or rebate. So, but that's,
I think the biggest change you'll see will be with uniforms. I'm not a big fan of Nike, and I don't want to be forced to purchase it, so.
I'm not either.
Anyone? All right, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Mr. Fowler is opposed. Please note that I abstain from the discussion. All right, we'll move on now to the, I guess technically with an abstention, we should pull the board in this thing.
Okay. Mr. Wendell?
Yes.
Mr. Fadler?
No.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Edding?
Abstain.
Mr. Abrams?
Yes.
Ms. Beresowski? Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on now to communication reports. First item is the superintendent's report.
pretty brief report. Like I said, our final days of first semester, going to be December the 22nd. Our district offices will be closed the 23rd and 24th. We'll probably be operating at a skeletal staff the week of December 27th through the 31st, although our office, in terms of anyone that does still want to conduct any filing for any board of directors position, our office will be open on the 27th and 28th, and on the 28th, which is the final day, will be open until 5 p.m. And then our first student attendance day for second semester will be Tuesday, January the 4th. One thing that I did want to mention, and I'm not asking for any action right now, I just want to make you aware, but I'm going to kind of wait until the next month to decide, but I could very well be coming back to you in January and asking that perhaps we consider recommending that the Tuesday, April 4th date maybe possibly be used as an AMI day, an alternative methods of learning day, or an online learning day, simply because the fact that once again Festus Middle School is utilized as a polling place, and we have the last couple of years because of the pandemic and that utilized all of our multi-purpose area, kitchen area during the day for student use, and that would enable us to, I did ask them, I did have the election authority come out a few weeks ago, and we toured a couple of our other facilities, especially some of our new ones that are scheduled to come online, and at this time, they just were not that they won't be in the future, but didn't really want to consider moving it if they didn't have to at this point. The access and parking is a little bit better, even, you know, at that middle school side. But anyway, I'm just thinking about it right now, and plus, of course, the biggest wild card in that will be when we get here in January. You know, in terms of the AMI day or not, how doable that would be would depend on it if we missed too many days by that point. Because ideally, we can use those AMI days if we have bad weather. We can use up to 6. Our first 4 traditional snow days. So if we're faring pretty well, we could actually make that day, if I recommend that and the board approved, actually make that day on April 5th be an online learning day, and we would not have to adjust our calendar at the end. Okay, but anyway, but just file that away. I'll be coming back to you, and you'll hear more from me in January, but I'm thinking about that. We will be actually starting in January also our calendar draft for the 22-23 school year. I might have that for you in March. And then our enrollment, if you look, our enrollment is still strong. You look there, and then some of the numbers I provided from you there. Our current enrollment as of yesterday, I believe, it was at 3,200. It was at 3,242. Now, what's really there with that is that whenever we started the first day enrollment back in August, we were at 3,235. So we've actually have increased, but usually you kind of go down in enrollment a little bit. Then our ADA, which is, again, now our ADA will fluctuate a lot depending on just 1-2 days of, a lot of absences can really change it. But of course the ADA, unlike enrollment, is what you get paid on your state money. And so you can see there, right now, we'll be pretty close. Our ADA has been for the year, based on our enrollment, which is about 93%, which if you compare then to where we ended our 2021 school year in May of 21, we were at right at 2941. And so if you look at where we were at in 2941 and where we're at now at 3,067, even though that 3,067, because just in winter we're gonna drop, okay? But even if we still keep a pretty fair attendance rate second semester, we could have quite an increase in our ADA, which again, for every ADA, remember, every ADA constitutes about, you know, roughly $5,000 to $6,000. So if you figure you go up 30 ADA from the prior year and you estimate that, you're going to have about 150, 180,000 in district revenue. So if we could actually get to 80 or 100, which right now we're running above 100, then we're not going to, that's not realistic to expect to continue that, but you can just kind of do the math. So Mr. Earnhardt will be continuing to monitor that in the days ahead, especially January, February. spring tends to be pretty positive for attendance because you have the map test and different things, but winter, because of, you know, typical what the weather brings about, the colds and sore throats, that does play a role in our attendance. Other than that, like I said, our first semester has been a little bit, like I said, it's been pretty smooth after we got off to that, you know, first start. We didn't know what to expect without face masks being highly recommended. I think all in all, that, you know, things went well. We never had to have any closures. We never reached our thresholds. Our health professional staff really continued to work hard throughout to make sure that we kept our students and staff healthy. That's my superintendent's report.
Okay, questions? Anyone? None? All right, we'll move on then to the technology report regarding student and staff data.
Okay, one of the things that, if Mr. Earnhardt will let us, if Mr. Pope will let us turn the lights down just a little bit then, but Mr. Baumann is here, and he's going to, our technology director, as you know, it seems like you never go any more than a week without hearing in the news, there's been a data breach. Some companies, their data's been breached, and people's information has been compromised. Well, here's a school district, we have also a lot of information that should be secure, should be kept secure, and kept from just anybody's attention. Health records, discipline records, grades, address information, a telephone, a lot of information that, you know, even from lunch counts and that, you know, a lot of different, so we wanted tonight, Dr. Roos and wanted to kind of make sure that we let everyone in R6 as well as the board of directors know that, like all school districts, R6 does take very seriously, and we do have shields in place that are to protect our data, not just our, like I said, our financial data, but also our email data, all the information that's within our email and our infrastructure. Because as you heard a couple months ago when our architects were here, they take their protection of their work very seriously, and they got ransomware earlier this fall. And so we definitely, that is something that Mr. Baumann takes very seriously, lays awake at night, worrying about at times. So Mr. Baumann is here going to take a few brief moments and kind of just tell you what are some of the steps that Festus R6 has taken in recent years to make sure that moving forward all of our data, student, staff, financial, is safe.
Thank you. So like Dr. Luttrell said, I'll briefly, in the next 20-30 minutes or so, go over my slideshow. He threatened me with 8 minutes, so I'll see if I can get it under 8 minutes. So Kevin, you can go to the next slide, please. So we'll start with some definitions. I'm going to use some terms that you may not be familiar with. So I figured it'd be best to start here. Vulnerability is a known weakness that bad people try to take advantage of. A breach is when a vulnerability is leveraged. So when you hear in the news a breach has happened, someone took some data from a company or they were got ransomware, that can be considered a breach. A phish, spelled with a PH, that's an email from a bad guy designed to lead to a breach. It looks like a fake Amazon email or a fake DHL or UPS email. Ransomware, it's a type of malware that typically is entered through a phishing email, and the goal is to make your systems unusable or to exfiltrate data. The trend in the last couple of years is if you have good backups and you can restore your servers and systems from a backup, the bad guys say, okay, since you're not going to pay us for that reason, we're gonna post all the data we took online if you don't pay us. So now it's kind of morphed into this exfiltration kind of blackmailish type scenario. DDoS, a dynamic denial of service attack. This is where people on the internet flood your internet connection and more or less consume your internet so that you can't do anything on the internet. Unfortunately, we have been a victim of this twice over the last 4 years. Thankfully, over the last 2 years, we haven't had one, knock on wood. So down to MSISAC. We are a member of MSISAC. It's the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center. It's an arm of Homeland Security. A bunch of reporting information goes into this. I get a daily alert from them with the status of ongoing cyber threats. If there's a a new emergent threat, they'll send out a bulletin as soon as they get notice of it with remediation steps to take. Vulnerability and assessment scans, so these are scans that you can sign a contract or hire an outside agency to do to test for vulnerabilities on systems that are both public-facing and internal. Two-factor authentication, I'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute, but this is a multi-step password authentication. So think of it as your front door. Regular, just a single password to get into, say, your email account is using just the lock on your handle of your front door. Two-factor authentication is putting a deadbolt on that door. So you have a key for your deadbolt and a key for your handle. We're requiring two-factor authentication for a couple different scenarios here now. So how real is the threat? I'll just say really real. Very, very, very real. This is data from MSISAC from 2020. It was compiled in October of 2020, so it's just over a year old. The first half of 2020, they saw that 28% of the attacks reported to MSISAC were related to K-12 school districts. In just the months of August and September, 57% of those attacks were related to school districts. And of those attacks, the ones that were ransomware, the ransom was, they say, average of $200,000. That ransom now is dramatically higher. Go ahead, next slide, Kevin. This is kind of hard to read, but it gives you an idea of how easy it is to hire some of these attacks. The denial of service attack, one of the ones that we were subject to was actually free. Someone just went out to a website and said, hey, hit this IP address. And we had fun for a couple hours trying to remediate that problem. Stolen usernames and passwords for emails, about $1 a piece is what they're worth. You can hire somebody to phish an organization for $100. So that gives you an idea of how easy and prevalent this is. Unfortunately, a lot of this originates from Eastern European countries. That data came from Microsoft. Go ahead, Kevin. So what about Missouri schools? Over the last 4 or 5 years, this is the compiled list that I have of school districts that have fell victim to either ransomware or were phished with a loss of data, meaning data was exfiltrated. The ones that are kind of generic, like large St. Louis County district or Southwest Missouri district, those are ones that I know of that have not been publicly disclosed. The ones that are publicly disclosed came from those two resources there at the bottom. Rockwood, I believe, has been hit twice now. Hazelwood has been hit. The Rockwood one, they were hit over the summer. Their systems were down for several weeks. Like in the middle of summer school, they couldn't use SIS, they couldn't get on the internet. It was bad. Couldn't use phones. What's the other? Afton School District, they were down for about 3 days, right last spring, right before testing. So the threat is very real. And you'll notice a number of these school districts are very large school districts, Rockwood, Park Hill, and that's Park Hill over in Kansas City, not Park Hills just south of us. Park Hill School District is one of the largest ones in the state. They were down for, I believe, a week and a half. That made some rather large news over in the Kansas City side in papers and TV over there. Piers, PSRS, was a phishing victim not long ago. And a school district that you were all very familiar with, a faculty member fell victim to a phish this summer and lost $400 because of it. So the threat is very real. And all it takes is one mistake. And anybody can fall for it. Anybody. Go ahead, Kevin. So what are we doing to mitigate risk? So there is no single silver bullet. I will tell you that. And this is all a list of things that we are doing here to prevent it. But I will tell you, it can still happen here. Anybody in the industry, in the cybersecurity industry, any of our insurance companies will tell you, it's not a matter of if, but when, and it's to what degree. So we have to do our best effort to prevent it. So we are training staff. I phish our staff. We have a contract with a company called KnowBefore. They send out monthly phishing emails to our staff. Every staff member gets it right now. The December one was a little bit high, 2.9%. It had been lower, down around 2.3%. But the December one was tailored to look like holiday emails. So coupons, e-greeting cards. And that's what bad guys do. Bad guys make their phishes look legit and take into account what's going on. It's the holiday season. Why not do that? Communication, both at the state level and the federal level. I get alerts, memberships of a couple different groups. Vulnerability scans, I do hire those out. We just had one completed with Maryville University with their cyber center. I also contracted out with MSISAC. The interesting thing with MSISAC, they denoted a couple of vulnerabilities with a website that we run. Those vulnerabilities have been taken to the vendor, and the vendor has mitigated them. So that relationship with MSISAC also leads to a relationship with our vendors. So we've been able to leverage these vulnerability scans and give them to our vendors and say, hey man, you've got a problem that you need to address. And they're more than, once I go to them and say, hey, Homeland Security scanned our stuff and we have a vulnerability, they jump all over it. It's been really nice to have some kind of backing of a legitimate agency saying, these are the findings. Obviously, we do software updates, professional memberships of MSISAC. We have backups, we do the 3-2-1 method. 3 copies of our data, 2 different medias, and 1 copy being offsite. We leverage a data center in St. Louis to store offsite data each night. We have next-gen antivirus. We follow a model of least privilege for our user accounts, meaning when you get a user account, you just don't get access to everything, or full privilege. We are now in the middle of, or actually at the end of, implementing 2-factor authentication for all of our certified staff email accounts. We are down to 2 individuals left to turn that on, and the deadline is December 22nd. So out of 250 certified staff members, we're down to 2 people left to turn that on. I think that's and we haven't really had any pushback. It's been actually a very good experience. And then we do 2-factor authentication for our elevated network accounts, meaning my account on the network and the 2 guys in my office, we can't sign into a PC without a physical key plus our password. So those accounts, those administrator level accounts cannot be leveraged. What's on the horizon? There is a very real possibility that our insurance carriers may require specific requirements for cyber to continue to cover us with cybersecurity insurance. There was recent federal legislation that may or may not lead to requirements. Right now, they say it will be recommendations, but I look for that to change. We will continue our established efforts. I'm looking at a redundant internet connection to kind of mitigate that dynamic denial of service attack vector. Looking at active security operations center monitor from MSISAC. And tomorrow, this is super exciting for me because I'm a nerd. I have organized a tabletop exercise led by Homeland Security. 39 school districts from the eastern side of the state of Missouri are going to be there. We have Homeland Security, the FBI, Secret Service, and CISA, the Cyber Security Infrastructure Security Agency, will be there leading the tabletop exercise, and it's going to revolve around a ransomware outbreak at a school district. So I'm super excited about that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for being super
excited. It's really exciting for people like me.
Christmas coming early.
Yeah, right, exactly. So that was a lot of information. I intentionally gave you guys the presentation early to kind of be able to look at it and formulate a question if you had something. If you do have any questions, please ask. If not, Dr. Luttrell can get a hold of me. You can always get a hold of me. Any questions?
Sounds good.
All right, thanks guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bowden.
I would like to give kudos to Josh. I meet with him every week and we talk about this stuff every Wednesday. And he is on it, and he really has done, in my opinion, an excellent job making sure that all of our mitigation for that is in place. He's done an excellent job with that.
Some of the things we've done have been a little painful, like me having to put in a key every time I log in, but the greater good of it is it helps prevent that. But the key takeaway is we can do everything in that presentation that I mentioned and more, and have a huge budget like Park Hill or Rockwood, and it can still happen.
Yeah.
So don't have a false sense of security. I'm not telling you this to make you think, hey, we're awesome. It's still a very real threat.
No, it sounds like we have the right amount of attention being paid to it, so appreciate it, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Anyone? Okay, we'll move now to a report from the financial agent regarding our lease purchase bonds. I think Mr. Kinder's here to talk to
Yes,
us.
last month, we actually had Mr. Kinder remote. That was my blunder, but he is back today with the good news, because his work is, for the most part, done. And he was able to, his agency was able to sell some coupons last week, and he's gonna share you how that issue came out and where we stand in terms of financially moving forward, as well as when the funds are here and everything. So, Mr. Kinder, give us an update on what occurred and what type of standing are we in.
Thank you, Dr. Rochelle. Good to see you all, and I will do just that, and I'll be very brief. You heard most of the spiel last month virtually, but everything went tremendously. Actually, in the 3-week intervening period while we got ready to price this issue, but again, we wanted to make sure we could price and close. And I think the money's on hand, ready to roll for your closing on the ECC. We wanted to make sure you had the money in hand prior to the closing of the ECC. We've got great news. Able to borrow money at a little bit under 2.65% out 25 years. And the average life on that is a little over 18 years, so that is well beyond the average life of a 30-year mortgage. And the reason behind that is, again, we're trying to structure your debt looking at all your lease debt, everything you've got outstanding, and make sure we're allowing for you to continue to access capital to complete building projects kind of on a regular basis. And then we also want to, while we can borrow money at 2.65% out that long, we want to do it so that if interest rates come up, you can actually borrow shorter. So the result was tremendous. It was well received in the market, and I've been saying rates should go up for a decade now. I could be wrong, but I think we're about to really hit some interest rates going up. So I think you hit it at a great time. Rates actually came down in between when we were at your board meeting and then 3 weeks later, so we couldn't have planned that any better. But a couple things to point out, and I think the key for you all, and I think you got this material, is that last page. And that's our analysis of your cash flows. So the left half of that document is going to be your revenues, and there's some additional information behind this that you can't see. But the left half, we're looking at revenues. The right half, we're looking at your expenditures. We've combined all your leases into your existing debt service page. But that surplus and deficit column, that is the column that is tracking how we project your cash flows will work, or how your budget will perform with that 80-cent levy sitting in your capital projects fund on an annual basis. And starting in 2024, we actually have some pretty decent sized surpluses there of over $170,000, and that was very intentional. As you know, you all do a great job with capital planning, and you always are giving me direction through the administration on certain projects that you may have come up that you want to have contingency plans for. So not only do we have the opportunity to come back, or you all have the opportunity to come back in a 4 to 6 year period, depending on what happens with your AV, and be able to do something again of this size or maybe even larger in terms of capital improvements. We've left some room. We know you're seeing some growth now. We know you do have some pain points. You might need a few additional classrooms. So we left you some room there to do something in the $5 million range as soon as next year if you needed it, if that growth kind of puts you in a position where you've got to do those classroom expansions. But all in all, fit well and very nicely into your long-range plan, allows you to continue to access capital and borrow money should you need it as you continue to look to improve your facilities, and gives you that flexibility if you need that classroom space within the next year or so to be able to go out and do that and not have to worry about how your budget is going to be impacted. You've got the room built in there. So other than that, happy to answer any questions, but great day. Your certificates were very well received in the market. People were excited to have them, and we had a tremendous result as a result of the work that you all are doing.
Awesome.
And everything that we needed to approve was done last month, so I mean, he was just here giving a report, so.
Yep.
Unless there's any questions, we'll let him.
Thank you very
Questions,
much.
anyone? Yep, no, awesome. Thanks, awesome, yeah, appreciate it.
See you, folks.
Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
thanks for coming
Thank you.
by. Yep. All right, we'll move on then to prior new business. The first item there is to approve the quote for exterior doors at the Burnside.
Yes, one thing that's been going on several years, I just keep putting it on, but we do need this building here, really does need some better exterior doors, and so we got some quotes on that. And again, it's a pretty tight market. The lead time is really long. That's why I'm doing it now as opposed to waiting until February or March. We did have two vendors that bid our spec. One was from Ron's Doors and Windows, who's done most all of our door replacement. And the other was from Camarco out of Fenton. They do good work as well. The low bid was from Ron's Doors and Windows in the amount of $24,755, which was almost a little bit, about $1,500 difference between that and the high bid. So again, I recommend that you accept the low bid from Ron's Doors and Windows in the amount of $24,755 to remove the existing exterior doors and install new exterior doors per bid specs at this office. So basically, you've got the double door set at the front, you've got the side door up top, and you've got these two down here. Those are the exterior doors that we're talking about. We are also going to move on the side door up top. This includes the cost for also putting in a, like we have the other buildings, a keyless access for individuals. So whenever people that come in and out of this building, when they're by themselves or whatever, instead of having to worry about a key, you can just swap in, swipe in. So.
Okay, someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the low bid from Ron's Doors and Windows in the amount of $24,755 for replacement of the exterior doors in the administration building.
Mr. Piper, Ms. Berzowski seconds. Any other discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, the next item will be to approve the district audit for fiscal year 21.
All school districts are required by statute to have an annual audit, and Daniel Jones and Associates out of Arnold has been our auditor for many years. And we went through that audit back this fall and was finished. And here this evening is a representative from Daniel Jones to kind of give you an overview. You have a hard copy paper and also uploaded digitally, whenever you want to look at that. But Jamie's here, and she's going to kind of just give you a brief update as to whether we were in compliance with most things, as well as if there were any concerns or issues or points of good job that she wants to point out. So Jamie, come on up and feel free to give us an update on the audit and how it came out.
Good evening, everyone. So the district ended fiscal year 21 with net position of $19,156,000, of which $9.9 million is unrestricted. Of that unrestricted amount, a little over $1 million is for assigned to capital projects. The district's unrestricted ending fund balance is approximately 30% compared to 27% in the prior year. In the report, a prior period adjustment was made to reflect the June 30, 2020 balance of the series 2019 Certificates of Participation project. And then throughout the report that you have, we issued 3 opinions. The first opinion is on the district's financial statements. We issued an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion that you can receive and that we can issue. It means it was a clean audit. The second opinion we issue is in regards to the district's compliance with the requirements of Missouri laws and regulations regarding budgetary and disbursement procedures, accurate disclosure by the district's records of pupil attendance and average daily transportation of pupils, and other statutory requirements as listed in the Schedule of Selected Statistics, and management's assertions that the district complied with the requirements for the fiscal year are fairly stated in all material respects. We did note just an immaterial instance of noncompliance in which the special revenue fund original and final budgets were deficit budgeted. There were 4 major federal programs that were tested this year. It was the Coronavirus Relief Fund, Title I, Supporting Effective Instruction, State Grants, and Educational Stabilization Fund. Which brings us to our last opinion that we issue in the report, which is in regards to the compliance for each of those major federal programs and internal control over compliance required by the uniform guidance. In our opinion, the district complied in all material respects with the types of compliance requirements that could have a direct and material effect on each of its major federal programs. So again, the district received an unmodified opinion, the best that you can receive and that we can issue. There was one financial statement finding reflecting or regarding lack of segregation of duties. You guys have had that in the past, and you know, with small staff, you're always going to have it. And then you should have also received a management letter, and you'll also see that it also just reiterates the finding that was found in our audit. The rest of the information is just standard verbiage that we're required to put in that letter. Just want to thank you for allowing Daniel Jones to do your audit, and are there any questions?
Questions, anyone? A lot of stuff here. Just read through and look at it.
If you think of any later, feel free to contact us.
Okay, we'll do that.
Well, thank you very much, and we'll approve the audit here. Okay? Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you for coming, appreciate it.
So we can just get a motion to approve that if you want.
So I'd like to make a motion again, if you guys want to take time to read through this whole thing, we can always bring questions back to Dr. Luttrell and get them answered if needed. Anyone so inclined?
I will make a motion to approve the audit.
Mr. Wolk? Second?
Second.
Mr. Abrams? Any other discussion for tonight? Like I said, if you have questions after going through this, we can always bring them back to the auditors and get them answered. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you again.
Thanks.
All right, the last item on the agenda for open session will be to approve the revisions to our return to school plan.
We, as you know, we've, all districts, if you're accepting any type of federal monies through CARES Act, whatever, you have to have a return to school plan, and it has to be reviewed and approved every 6 months. We approved the last one back in August, or July, August, and of course, we've updated a little bit based upon our recent information. Of course, muddy in the waters more so was that, as you know, the Attorney General's office came out last week, and for the most part, and I did include that in the attachments there, basically alleging that school districts should not be following orders from local health entities like a health department or a state health department, because they do not have the authority to issue mandates such as mask mandates, quarantines, whatever, and told districts to stop relying on that. And so that we sent it to our legal counsel. Our legal counsel looked at it, and in this return to school plan for second semester, there are some minor changes that we're sticking with the main emphasis of. You know, we're still going to have masks that are highly recommended, but they're optional. The biggest thing is also that unless a student or a staff member has a positive test or has symptoms, they are not going. Only those will be excluded from school. In the past, we've had close contacts that may have been in close proximity, whether, you know, through the home, whether it be, you know, through here at school. If they weren't displaying symptoms, we were, based upon guidance we'd got, had been quarantining those individuals, but very few of those ever received symptoms, especially the school contacts. And so we've decided that we need to be in compliance so that, because again, even the Attorney General's office last week after this letter was sent out, you know, the very next day, I know there were colleagues in other districts that still had mask mandates or different things in effect. The Attorney General was sending out cease and desist letters because they'd gotten feedback from parents and that. So we're trying to balance that with, you know, what's still good for our school community. And so our current plan for second semester does state, as I said, that only unless you're symptomatic or if you are a positive case are you restricted, excluded from school. We're using our communicable disease policy, not upon what we're handed down from the health department. If you remember, we had whooping cough pre-pandemic, and we, under that point in time, we've used our communicable disease policy where if there is something that is found to be transmittable, a district can exclude a person from school. So that's kind of what this is going to kind of go by, using our best judgment. I do think that our health professionals have done a great job keeping abreast of our numbers, communicating with parents. We, of course, will still, and Mrs. Roth in a minute can correct me if I'm wrong, her and Dr. Roos, but we are also, though, on anyone that we do have that is a positive, that we know about, and say we feel that there was individuals at school that could have been exposed, we will still do some contact tracing to kind of let those parents of those individuals know that might have been in close contact. We're not going to exclude it from school. We're at least going to inform the parent, and the parent can make that decision what they want to do. But we will not be saying that again, some parents do want to know that, and so that kind of outside that will be our main cause for what we're doing the second semester. We're still going to. We've gotten pretty much back to normal with our events, we didn't have any limits. I know I just came tonight before the meeting, I went over to the second grade Christmas program they had, and it was good to see everybody, the kids singing, the parents, grandparents in attendance. Earlier this week I was at the intermediate concerts, last week at the middle school and high school. So it's good to see that. We'll continue that. I look for us to, as long as our again, our landscape goes well, I look for us to continue getting back to a lot of things. We had some Veterans Day assemblies. We didn't do many at the lower grades because those weren't vaccinated, but now that those children have had opportunity to be vaccinated twice, I can see us continue, start down the road with, more field trips and that. But we've got to, we'll try to continue moving back to normal. So at this point in time, like I said, I'm going to let Mrs. Roth, if she has anything that she wants to highlight, her and Dr. Roos. And then if you all have any questions that you want to for sure get clarification on, you're free to do so. So Lindsay, if you want to come up and if there's anything you want to add or clarify, you and Dr. Roos, you're welcome to do that.
Yeah, I think in general the plan is very similar to the one from first semester. Our mitigation strategies, the social distancing, the cleaning, disinfecting, that's all pretty much the same. He went over the contact tracing and close contacts. I think that is a benefit to our students. It's going to get our healthy kids that have been made to stay home back in the classroom. We're still asking parents to monitor for symptoms. We're still asking them to notify us if their student is positive. The other major change is just to remove those thresholds. If you remember from first semester, there were some thresholds in place. The benefit of that is actually just to allow us flexibility to see the picture as a whole. So just because we reach a certain number of positives, it doesn't mean that in the big picture, those positives are coming from school. So by removing the thresholds, I'm allowed to look at how many of those came from home, how many of those came from siblings, parents, friend groups outside of school, and then we're not making any quick decisions or immediate decisions here in the district for things that aren't happening here. So that is the benefit to removing the thresholds. Other than that, I really feel like our plan is very similar to first semester, and I think it's a good plan.
What about the dashboard? Do you have any thoughts?
So there will be some changes to the dashboard. The main change is just that the close contacts will be removed, and the reason for that is because they're no longer going to be accurate. So if we're not quarantining students, then those numbers are not going to represent anything real. The positive cases will remain on the dashboard so that everybody's aware of where the district is at. I don't really think there's a need for the daily COVID update emails because our dashboard is updated real time. So you can get on our website anytime and see exactly what our numbers are.
Okay, any questions?
So if we're not operating with any thresholds, why do we still need to track it then? I mean, why do we need the dashboard? I mean, not track it, but we do need to track it.
Sure. Well, so just because we don't have official benchmarks doesn't mean I'm not still using those numbers to help guide decisions within the district. I think it's important that you keep them in mind. The numbers themselves that we were using as a threshold are good numbers. It's actually all the numbers that St. Louis County has gone to recently. But what we have found in this first semester, and actually even in last year, is that you have to look at so much more than just the number of positive cases. It's an important number to look at, but you shouldn't base your decisions just on that one number. You need to look at how many of those were exposed at home. If you read into the plan, we do still recommend that home contacts stay home. So if you're exposed by a parent or a sibling, we do recommend that you stay home for a period of time to monitor for symptoms, because those are the people who are so much more likely to develop the virus. Our kids here at school, when they're just sitting next to somebody in class, those kids are not testing positive. I mean, the number is very, very low across the state and across the country, not just here at Festus. So I think it's important to remember what those thresholds were. I think it's important to use them as a guide. I also think we need to remove the immediate response when you hit a certain number.
And as we have discussed before, you know, those, even though it's real time, those are positive. And she constantly has kids coming back to school and positive cases. So those numbers, although she's reporting them, there's that constant influx of kids who are coming off, back and forth. So the other reason about the thresholds to get rid of that, so that she can look at the bigger picture.
Right. So we have 26 positive cases right now. 15 of them will be out of isolation in the next 4 days. So, and it's constantly like that. I mean, this is a peak. It's a peak everywhere. It's not just here at Festus. It's very similar to the peak we saw this time last year. So.
And I think the other thing that's important for many people to understand too is that our numbers are only as good as what we get from either parents coming and showing us, or if, by instance, the health department or member does send it to us. But a lot of the times, if somebody doesn't get tested or they don't share it, he can't, you know.
I have a question. It seems like our only defense, I am a mask wearer and I believe masks should be mandatory, but apparently the Attorney General has done a cease and desist, so we really don't have a choice. We cannot make it mandatory. So the other avenues of trying not to get infection is social distancing. How do you social distance in a classroom? Because I can't do it.
So our classrooms are very well socially distanced for the amount of space that we have. Our principals actually went in at the beginning of the school year and personally rearranged classrooms.
And how do you, like I have 25 in the class and they're sitting right there. I mean, how far apart are they?
So 3 feet is the guide that we have used all year long. Anywhere that we can get 3 feet of spacing, we do. If we're unable to, then some of like the elementary classrooms, we will do like pods. So that way if you did have to make quarantines, you were quarantining just 3 students instead of 9.
I saw everybody has assigned seats, K through 12.
They do, yes.
Even in the high school?
They do. And that's how we are able to contact trace.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, if we're using the board policy for communicable diseases, does this also apply to the flu?
It does.
So
we are able to exclude.
So if they have a positive test, they have to stay home until they test negative?
So what it reads is per Department of Health and Senior Services guidelines. So there's actually a handbook for communicable disease issued from the Department of Health and Senior Services, and there is specific guidance for the flu in there. So flu guidelines are currently 24 hours fever-free and feeling well enough to participate in class. There is not a guideline from DHSS in that manual for COVID. So I'm sure there will be eventually. There is not one there right now.
I was going to say, was there, right?
Yeah, so there are guidelines out there, lots of guidelines. It is not part of that manual right this minute. So yeah, I'm sure it will be. Right now, the exclusion is 10 days, and that is because that is the period of contagiousness. So at any point in those 10 days, they could potentially spread the virus to other people. As long as their symptoms are resolved after the 10 days, they're no longer considered contagious.
Lindsay and I have talked about that specifically. We think we're going to get guidance on that. That'll probably be the next step down the road, that will be added to the guidance that we have on the other types of diseases.
Hadn't they gone to 7 days sometime in the recent past instead of 10, or what was that 7 day they went to?
So 7 days that's for quarantines. So what you can do, it is a test out early option, which won't apply to us any longer, but they could test after day 5 and then return after day 7 with a negative test, and also remaining symptom-free.
Thank you. I heard that number 7,
Yeah,
I didn't know where that fell into everything.
Yeah, the actual positive case, though, has been 10 days throughout the entire pandemic.
Other questions?
So when you say the 10 days, though, like somebody may be feeling bad for 4 days and then they get tested, does the 10-day start on that day, or do you go back to the day they start feeling bad?
You go back to symptom onset. So it goes from symptom onset, the day that their symptoms started is actually day 0, 10 days, and then they can return on day 11.
Regardless of what day they actually tested.
Right, yes, yeah, that does not really play
They
into it at all.
tested 5
The only
days in,
exception
they're out
to
for
that
another 5.
is somebody who
Unless they're
is.
still showing symptoms.
Right, right. If they're tested without symptoms, so if you go in for a procedure, you have to be tested, you happen to test positive, then it goes by test date. But that is the only exception to that.
Any questions? I think you guys have done and are doing an amazing job. I mean,
Yeah.
just
I agree.
What's your job?
It's a tough situation, and
They've
you're
done a
holding
good
it
job.
down. Thank
They
you.
have done well.
just being able to accommodate people's wants, needs, opinions, and everything else has been super. So thank you to your group.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I just had one other question on this topic, and just to confirm, we're following our established procedure, policy, and we're not breaking any laws, correct?
Communicable disease policy is what we're following, not,
Okay.
That's what it is.
And everything we're doing is legal and not in.
as of today.
So all I care about is
And that
next
is
month, if it
the
changes.
only reason why I will vote for this, because I don't want to go to jail.
If something changes, we'll vote.
You get 3 meals.
Yeah, no thanks.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the revisions to the return to school plan, so inclined.
I will make a motion to approve the revisions to the return to school plan.
Mr. Woke,
Second.
Mr. Abrams, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Does anyone else have anything for open session? If not, I'll entertain a motion with a roll call vote to enter into executive closed session with a closed record and closed vote pursuant to RSMO 610.021, sections 2, 3, and 13.
So moved.
Mr. Fadler,
Second.
Mr. Abrams, will you pull the board, please, Ms. Sim?
Mr. Wendell?
Yes.
Mr. Padler?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Reddy?
Yes.
Mr. Abrams?
Yes.
Mr. Rosowski? Yes.
Okay, thank you. We'll take a 5-minute